Virginia Park. It's a place where children play, people exercise, families picnic. I walk my dog there. But for a few months in 2017, it became a battleground, a flashpoint for conflicts erupting across the country. The Committee for Racial Justice had been meeting in a room at the park for years. I didn't know much about them until I saw the story in the paper. A handful of masked men had shown up at their last meeting. They sat down, whispering racist, anti-Semitic comments. One held a sign on his lap, "To Goyim, no," an anti-Semitic slur. What were these people doing in Santa Monica? In the months after the Trump election, racists seemed to be coming out of the woodwork. The next month, it was worse. About 50 white supremacists descended on the committee meeting. The intruders taunted them.
You just want to erase all white people.
As the members continued their discussion of local racial issues, the intruders tried to push their way in. They were confronted by police and a group of black men who had come as allies from Southeast LA. There was a shoving match at the door. A few managed to get in. A police officer asked the committee, in light of the disruption, did they want to end the meeting? A brave show of hands said no. It was against this backdrop that I and hundreds of people in the community decided to take a stand. Police told the committee that word had spread and about 300 white nationalists and neo-Nazis from across the state planned to converge on their next meeting to try to intimidate them out of existence. But the committee wasn't backing down. They met with police and community leaders to plan their response. I started seeing social media posts. The committee was asking people from the neighborhood to fill the park for their next meeting, to create a peaceful buffer. I decided I had to do it. That day, I set out for the park with my husband and 2 grown children. As we walked, I felt fear. What if there was violence? Charlottesville had happened just a few weeks before. A young woman was killed when a white supremacist rammed his car into the crowd. What if these people brought weapons? What was I doing bringing my family? But then I thought of my mother. She and her Jewish family had lived through the Nazi occupation of France, barely escaping before the Gestapo came knocking at their door. What would she have thought of Nazis coming to Santa Monica? When we arrived, the park was filled with supporters. Bands were playing, barbecues were going. A couple hundred people milled around the meeting room. Police were positioned around the building, behind metal barricades, and horses. Sheriff's deputies on horseback guarded the park. Someone told me the entire Santa Monica Police Department had been called in, and members of neighboring forces were staged at Santa Monica College, just in case. A couple dozen scary-looking young people dressed in black with bandanas over their faces strolled around. Turns out they were Antifa, a group formed to fight against white nationalists. But they've been violent too, and I wasn't sure if I was glad to see them. I heard one say, "We're only going to do peaceful resistance. If that doesn't work, we're turning it over to the police." I felt somewhat reassured. There were also people with orange armbands. One of them told me they'd all been trained in de-escalation. I was glad the response seemed well organized. Suddenly, someone near me yelled, "They're here!" and pointed to a far corner of the park. About 60 of them! I braced, but I didn't see anyone. The ambiance continued, of defiant gaiety. An Aztec group danced and blessed the building. The organizers finally started letting people into the building. The crowd began to disperse, but my daughter and I lingered. I didn't feel the people inside were safe. What if the intruders came later? I chatted with a few neighbors, now and then glancing around the perimeter. One friend pointed to her tennis shoes. "I wore these in case I had to run." I laughed. I had the same thought. No open-toed shoes. At one point, 3 young white guys approached the barricade. They looked around as if they couldn't find what they were looking for, then left. Suddenly, there was shouting. About 15 Latino guys on our side pressed against the barricades, yelling. I inched forward to see. On the other side, a scrawny young man with a red Trump hat shouted and pointed. Would this escalate? Police and horseback deputies gathered. Suddenly, they moved with military precision. The police advanced in a line between the barricades. The horseback deputies positioned themselves on the sides. Meanwhile, the ridiculous spectacle continued. One guy with a red baseball cap shouting wildly at more than a dozen guys on our side. The baseball cap guy had a videographer with him. I thought. A few officers escorted them away. I guess he got the footage he wanted. What were the hordes we were expecting? I have a feeling they got one look at the hundreds of people, police, mounted sheriffs, and had turned around and gone home. They were looking for a soft target, and this wasn't it. And in the months that followed, they never returned.